So today, we're diving into the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, but we're looking at it through a really unusual lens. This isn't some dry policy paper. No, this is framed as a divine verdict. Let's see what happens when one of the world's biggest flashpoints gets judged from, well, a higher plane.
And right from the jump, the tone is set. This isn't just about geopolitics, it's about a deep, profound human failure. The entire crisis is immediately framed as a battle between simple wisdom and, well, folly.
And here's the core idea. These waters don't belong to any one country. The crisis isn't some act of God. It's a totally self-inflicted wound. A crisis completely and utterly made by humans.
To really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number. 21 million barrels of oil. Every single day. That's about a fifth of the entire world's energy supply. It's the lifeblood of the global economy, and right now, it's being choked off.
And this is where it gets really powerful. That abstract number, 21 million, is connected directly to human suffering. You know, when the oil stops, the heat goes off, food doesn't get delivered, and fear just takes over. It completely reframes this from a geopolitical game into a very real humanitarian disaster.
So how did we even get here? Well, the analysis points the finger at both sides. You got the American approach, described as metal and fire, and then Iran's, which is called a grip of desperation. The result? The same for both. Failed peace talks and a complete breakdown of what's called Dharma, that sort of righteous cosmic balance.
This brings us to what the source calls the anatomy of a trap. And it's not just talking about the geography, the physical bottleneck. It's also a psychological trap, one that's designed to fuel anger and make any kind of peaceful solution impossible to see.
This chart just lays out the stark physical reality of that trap. You've got that 21 million barrels of daily flow that has to get through. But the alternative pipelines, they can only handle maybe 4 million barrels a day, tops. There is no plan B. There's no logistical workaround. The world is physically stuck, totally dependent on this one tiny channel. And here's the psychological part of the trap. The West is demanding freedom. Tehran is demanding sovereignty. But look closer. These are really just masks for the true weapon being used by both sides, fear. They're both trying to win by making the other side afraid, and it just keeps this cycle of anger and stalemate going and going.
So if the problem is a loss of balance, then the solution has to be about restoring it, right? And that's where the verdict comes in. It's called the path of the Vel. That's the divine spear of the Hindu deity Murugan, which is said to pierce through illusion and anger to get to the truth.
The verdict itself lays out a pretty clear three-step path to getting a truce that actually lasts. So let's break down what each of these steps actually means.
All right, step one is what's called righteous separation, and it's basically mutual de-escalation. It's a call for both sides to just back off. At the same time, Tehran has to stop messing with the shipping, and Washington has to end the economic blockade and the military strikes. A really simple, symmetrical first move to just stop the fighting.
Now, step two brings in a super crucial element, a neutral third party. I mean, the trust between Washington and Tehran is completely gone, right? So this verdict calls for a big coalition of 40 neutral countries to basically act as referees, observers, and peacekeepers. They'd be the eyes on the ground, making sure both sides actually stick to the deal.
And finally, step three gets to the money, the economic root of the whole conflict. It calls for a direct swap. Iran stops all the extortion and the tolls it puts on ships, and in return, the crippling sanctions get lifted. This isn't framed as one side giving in, but as restoring that balance, that Dharma.
And all this leads us to the final ultimatum. The path has been laid out, it's crystal clear. But the source makes a point of saying that the window to actually choose this path, well, it's closing, and it's closing fast.
Right now, there is a temporary ceasefire, but it's described as being as fragile as a human heart. The clock is ticking down to the deadline for the next round of peace talks. A real decision has to be made before this incredibly fragile peace just shatters. So in the end, this whole incredibly complex crisis gets boiled down to one single, stark choice. Are they going to choose the path of wisdom and balance, the path of the Vel, or are they going to choose the path of anger and mutual destruction, which is, of course, chaos?
So there you have it. The verdict is clear. The path is laid out, but the choice to actually walk it or to let everything descend into chaos, well, that rests with humanity. It's a pretty powerful reminder that even when you're shown the way, the ultimate responsibility is still your own.